Hi, I'm Adrian Strittmatter. Welcome to Bricks and More. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Saentys, a global creative consultancy specializing in destinations, real estate, and the hospitality sector. Bricks and More is all about exploring how to generate, unlock, and maximize real estate value. Our mission is to challenge outdated and limiting notions of how this is done. In each episode, we talk to top professionals to uncover innovative strategies that drive short, medium, and long-term gains. So if you're passionate about making real estate more valuable for more people, you're in the right place. Welcome to Bricks and More. Prime residential is evolving fast. Clients expect more transparency, more detail, better design, and a smoother journey from conception to completion. At the same time, developers and homeowners are looking for smarter ways to create lasting value. So in this episode of Bricks and More, we explore how architecture, interiors, craftsmanship, and project delivery all come together to create exceptional homes. To unpack this, I am delighted to welcome Jonathan Mount, co-founder, managing director of Project London. Jonathan leads a multidisciplinary team specializing in high-end residential design, development, and bespoke interiors across London and the Middle East. This is a fantastic conversation about creativity, detail, client experience, and unlocking value through great residential design. So, Jonathan, welcome to Bricks and More.
Thanks for having me.
Lovely to have you on the show. So you've been sort of advising sort of high net worth clients, on acquiring and renovating, residential prime properties in London for a number of years. I mean, what first drew you into the wonderful world of real estate?
I think I probably slightly fell into it, if I'm honest, after university, not really knowing quite what to do. I had a number of friends who were in a sort of sales world, whether it was real estate, recruitment, headhunting, whatever. And I think that I probably was most interested in property out of those things. The lure of when you're an early 20-year-old, the lure of a car and a phone kind of sealed the deal. So that was history kind of written. But I started doing it and I enjoyed it. When I started, as a lot of people who kind of have advanced in their careers in real estate, I actually started in the world of Foxtons. So it was a real kind of baptism of fire. But it was an extension of university. Yeah. Like it was a lot of young guys and girls working hard, having fun, making money for the first time. And it was a really good kind of training ground. It taught you a lot of discipline. It taught you kind of how to put a deal together, how to deal with clients, how to deal with colleagues, difficult conversations, etc. Yeah. And I was in a state agency probably for approximately 7 or 8 years, I reckon. Moved around a couple of times, but I always wanted to move into the more advisory side of that world, which was buying agency. So all the moves I made were always to go and work in a different area. So I did Putney, I did Battersea, I did Holland Park, I did Hyde Park, I did Kensington. So I really got kind of a good understanding of prime central London. And when you move into buying agency, that's what your client wants above all, is you to be able to advise on the different parts of prime central London. Yeah. So that's what I did. My opportunity in buying agency came for Knight Frank. That was probably in 2010, maybe 2011, 2010, I think. And I was there for 6 years. Started as an associate, progressed to partner. Thoroughly enjoyed my time. Great business. Really enjoyed kind of working with private clients, working on the advice side. It was nice but the idea I had about the job I wanted to do, having kind of experienced property, turned out to be exactly what I wanted to do. So it was nice to kind of think you create a vision for yourself. Yeah. And if I got into that, having kind of worked for years and found actually I didn't really like it, then that would have been a bit of a bit of a letdown.
Training to be a lawyer and then you go, I don't like this.
Yeah, actually. Exactly. Well, I know a few of those.
We all do.
Yeah. But no, it was great. I enjoyed the variation. I've always enjoyed people and building relationships. And it's been a little bit of a pivot into what I do now, but that's never changed. Working with people, the thrill of, I guess, putting a deal together, having someone come and work with you over others. understanding what you're trying to offer in the market. That's always been the bit that kind of gets me up in the morning.
Gets you up in the morning.
Yeah.
Do you think? I think what I found interesting was also, that people side and the client side has really given you sort of, what one could call a kind of front row seat to how people evaluate homes. What are their drivers? You talked about, the different locations and how they could fit different characteristics or what people are looking for. I mean, how's that sort of, have you started to have this kind of like sort of profiling mechanism of, how people evaluate homes? And
you definitely did as a buying agent. I think if you had people who were kind of looking over multiple locations in prime central London and you got to know them, you'd start to instinctively know probably where they would end up. Like a kind of Belgravia, Knightsbridge kind of profile buyer wasn't ever really going to buy in Notting Hill, Holland Park. It's just quite different in terms of the characteristics of the location. So I think you get a bit of an understanding of the different nuances of the different areas. It's a bit different now because I'm introduced once the property has been acquired and it's now their home. So it's just learning what makes people tick in a different way and what they're looking for from a design perspective now rather than the area that's potentially going to suit them. I'm not involved at that early stage anymore when I'm sort of looking out for the property. But I think it's understanding people is important and being able to kind of get to the nub of what's important to them as quickly as possible makes you good at what you do, I think, regardless of what it is you're doing.
And do you think that certain characteristics have changed in terms of what people are looking for? Or
yes, in terms of buying or in terms of design or...
In terms of buying first and then the design stage afterwards, yeah.
I mean, look, I think if you ask, I spend a lot of time networking with agents and buying agents, and I'm still very in touch with the market. And I think anybody who tells you that the majority of clients aren't looking for a turnkey solution these days is lying. Like, people are scared fundamentally of doing work, of what it entails, of the process of getting permissions, of the process involved, of actually the cost of the works themselves. Will it overrun? Is the budget that I set out with going to actually get the job done? Is the builder going to go under? All these sorts of things are of huge concern to people. And there is just a kind of nice safety in knowing that if you buy something that's turnkey, you can plonk your bags down and you're done. So, and that's, I think, been evident in the market as well. Like, you still see in what's been a challenging market over the last few years, you still see record prices being achieved. You see a lot of things that are going for well below what values were in sort of 2014, but you still now and then you will see a record price per square foot achieved, and it's always for the thing that is absolutely perfect. So it's sort of like the competition for the things that are done really, really well almost increases when the market gets difficult.
When it gets difficult.
Yeah.
And would you say sort of going into the sort of the you guys founding sort of Project London, was it born out of, I think it's going to be a bit strange question, but was it born out of a frustration of going, well, this is done badly, or an opportunity, or arguably a bit of both?
It was a bit of both, to be honest. So after leaving Knight Frank, myself, my now business partner Sam, and we had another partner Rachel, and then we had another partner Nick as well. We were all Knight Frank at the Buying Solution, and we did that job for a number of years. And because you're not part of the wider Knight Frank family anymore, you don't have all this sort of service lines that you can pass your clients into once the acquisition is done. You look to kind of see how you can help that client. You're dealing with fewer people. You kind of want to get as much out of each individual client as you can. So, and one of the key areas we would pass people into was into the world of renovations. Once they bought the property, they wanted to do, maybe it was a full job, including kind of basement, rear extension, loft. Maybe it was just a cosmetic overhaul. Maybe it was just a furniture package, whatever it was, we would look to help. And I think the first one we did, which was a property in Abingdon Villas in Kensington, it was a kind of 2,500 square foot lateral flat that we helped a Malaysian client buy. It was probably to save face a little bit as much as anything. Like, we had very much...
Great place to start.
Yeah,
I mean,
we'd done a lot of our own projects. Sam had done a number of his own houses. I had too. We had a bit of an understanding of what the process looked like, what the permission process would look like, how much it should cost. And we had advised our client on the price that she was buying the property for, what it was likely to be worth once the works were done, and how much the works were likely to cost. And we kind of went out to design and build firms and got some quotes for her, and they were well above the levels that we had suggested she should be looking to pay. So it was kind of like, well, look, we just don't believe this. Like, it was one of those. We had a very good relationship with the client. We said, look, let us build the team for you. We'll continue our role as kind of your advisor. We will go out and we will interview the architect. We'll interview the interior designer. We will help you buy your finishes, pass on trade discounts to you. We'll run a competitive tender. We'll go and find you a builder. We'll negotiate the price, and we will go kind of regular site visits and just be your eyes and ears. She wasn't here. She was in Malaysia. So she needed that help, which is why we'd originally gone to design and build, like that sort of holistic solution. And I think design and build firms were all coming in at about 1.5 plus VAT. And I think including our fees, which we did okay, we brought it in for about 900 plus VAT. So we were like, okay, there's legs in this. Like, granted, we didn't have I'm very aware of overheads these days. Now I have a much bigger business, but
welcome.
But we didn't have those overheads. Like, we could go and we could really pick and choose who we wanted to work with. The client got all the finishes she wanted. She got the marbles. She got nice furniture. Like, she was very, very happy with the end result. It wasn't without its surprises along the way. We learned a lot, but I think we went into it with our eyes open. We told her that we weren't the experts at this, but we were going to be genuinely looking out for her best interests, and we would always have that eye on, like, what's the end value here, and that should inform the budget. And then we kind of just continue to do that for our buying clients, having done it once and proven it. We probably did another 7 or 8 for clients that we acquired for over the next kind of couple of years.
And that kind of gave you proof of concept.
Of concept, and we tried to do it as part of our kind of buying arm. The firm was called Sterling Private Office, still going. Rachel's still there. Nick is as well. We tried to do it whilst we were there, but when you're selling that to your buying clients, it's a very easy sell because they know you, they trust you.
I was going to say trust is key.
When you try and do it from someone with somebody who you're meeting for the first time, yes, you've got kind of some anecdotal evidence of how you've delivered, and they could speak to a client, but ultimately you are a buying agent at the end of the day. And a lot of clients rightly were like, well, this sounds great, but how can you prove that you can do this? This is a big leap of faith for me to come and pay you X percentage of the project cost, which I don't know. I don't know what the project cost is yet. So we were like, okay, we had to make a bit of a decision on, do we continue to just do this for our buying clients and keep kind of ticking along, or do we pivot and say, we're going to give this a go now? And we decided to do the latter, really. Probably came at a time when maybe the space was getting quite competitive. A lot of good agents were leaving the likes of Knight Frank, Savills, Struts, etc., and becoming buying agents. So the space was becoming quite diluted. And we really thought that the network we created within that agency world, who'd already started to show kind of signs that they would support us doing this, would be the way that we would start to make inroads quite quickly in the industry. And that's kind of proven to be the case. So yeah, that was kind of like the why. It was to solve a problem that we were finding for our clients. What we do now has evolved many, many times over since we started the business.
Since those original plans. In terms of sort of in the world, we're sort of very obsessed on the podcast with this notion of, real estate value is created. What would be your sort of now the typical project, and how you could, to your point, sort of you're delivering that value obviously for the person to live in that home, but also potentially to, sell it on or sell it off at some point. How do you incorporate that sort of notion of value within the work that you do?
So I mean, Sam and I very much lean into the fact that we were buying agents for a long, long time. And one of our USPs is definitely that we have been through thousands of doors. We know what sells, we know what doesn't sell, we know what adds value and what doesn't add value. So we try and it is kind of horses for courses. Like a Notting Hill family house needs to have certain attributes and be done in a certain way if it's going to sell well in the future. we try and kind of steer our clients towards
Those
those
choices.
sorts of choices. Yeah,
Mhm.
like of course they can have whatever they want in the home. Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're a hired gun. Like we will do what the client wants us to do, but we try and advise based upon what's right for that street, for that location, for that market and demographic who will be buying that house in the future, so that if things change for the client, even if they plan to be there 15, 20 years, they know that they've got something that is liquid, market dependent, obviously,
Mhm.
that if things change, they could sell. And you don't want to, as a result, be putting mezzanine floors everywhere and car lifts into a family area. You don't want to create a bachelor house for that kind of market.
Yeah.
So I think it's just that. It's just keeping a bit of an eye on yes, bringing the client's design choices to life, but advising based upon what's right for the location as well.
Yeah, and making sort of that blend, that beautiful blend of, personal aesthetic decisions and what makes good business sense in
Yeah,
terms of,
absolutely.
the
Yeah.
resale potential. Yeah.
Yeah, we sort of say to all of our clients that, like, whether you spend more than the property is going to be worth when the works are done or not, that initial budget, I always think, should start out and be informed by what the property's worth at the end of this.
Mhm.
Like that
Yeah, that should be
should
your North
inform.
Star. Yeah.
Exactly. If you spend more than that, but you've started from a design perspective with that as you put it, as your North Star, then I don't think you'll go far wrong. And then if you want to up spec on joinery and finishes and FF&E and whatever else, that's fine. But at least you've not kind of made choices at the start that are going to completely blow the project out with the realms of what anything's sold for in the local area.
And in terms of the business itself, what would you say the kind of the USPs or the things that you've now learned from the market and what your competitors are? What would you say the core sort of benefits of working with you guys would be for these private clients who, as you said, are sort of, maybe cash rich but time poor and not always, cash rich. But I mean, in terms of sort of what would you say is your key sort of elements? You're talking about the open book, the elements like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, look, we've gone through a lot of iterations.
Mhm.
One thing that's never changed is the open book
Mhm.
part. Like we've always wanted to be as transparent as we possibly can be with fees. With our procurement service, we have a procurement fee which is very transparent from the off, and we pass on 100% of our trade discounts to our clients. They can see retail, they can see trade, they can see our fee, and it can be up or down spec as they wish when we go through a value engineering process. That runs through the core of the business, just being as completely open as we can. Excellent communication, I think, is probably the single most important thing. Probably in any business, but particularly when you're offering a service like we are in the design world, or we were in the property world when we're providing advice. Good comms with your client from the off.
I think, you know what, I love that point because I think it's one of the major overlooked factors. Like I say, we're delivering a product, but forgetting that in every business relationship, a good 50% is going to be the service level, the
Yeah.
comms level. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
If you've got good communication, then you build trust quickly. And whatever you're selling, whether it's stocks and shares or property or design, ultimately it's probably trust that actually you're selling, isn't it? Your client buys into you and you want them to believe everything you're telling them. And I think if you're to your core quite authentic in the way that you work, then that kind of comes through. I think one thing that we learned that now runs through our business is we thought that what clients wanted when we started Project London was that end to end, like we would do everything. So we partnered with a construction company quite early on, and we built a number of our projects out for clients. We shut that business down for a number of reasons, and I think this is kind of key to us now. Is I like the phrase, "You can't be the poacher and the gamekeeper." Right. So we spent a huge amount of time on the client side in design, in what's the best decision for the house, how should we spend the money, is there anything that we should phase, et cetera, so we don't compromise on the end result. Then you go on site, and all of a sudden, having sat totally client side and been advice, you've got financial interest in the build. So it's really hard when inevitably variations, changes of scope.
I was going to say scope creep.
Yeah, exactly. Comes up, and you're kind of thinking, well, I want to protect my client, but I also want to protect my business. It's just you can't do it. So I mean, that's not the only reason that we closed it down. It's also very hard to make money in the construction world, and we had things hit at that time when we had big projects on the go, like the Ukraine war,
Ah.
and you were like, okay, well, material costs are going through the roof.
Mm.
Actually, I quite like that my overhead is my people and nothing else. Like I prefer that, but we very much are client advisors, and what we do now is everything is still in-house apart from the build. And the build, we run competitive tender. We always go to between 3 to 5 contractors, and then we sit totally client side throughout. Assuming we're project managing, we are the contract administrator. We will interrogate variations, interrogate change of scope. We always use JCT contracts, which have things like liquidated damages in there. We very much protect clients' interests, and that's just a much more comfortable place for us to be as a business.
Yeah, completely. Well, it enables you to sort of as you were saying, one of your key USPs, which is transparency.
Yeah,
I think if you're on both sides of the deal,
it's tough to,
it's a super tough. And when you go out to tenders, I mean, and your knowledge of the market now, how are those businesses? I mean, it's a side kind of question, like how are those businesses making money? Because I mean, the context is, materials, qualified tradespeople. You finding has the market contracted? Are there less and less of it?
Yeah, there definitely are. Yeah, the contractors that we use regularly are finding the same thing that we're finding this year. That this is probably a slightly more challenging year than anybody expected it was going to be, and we all thought that maybe we were going to slightly kick on from last year, and that hasn't necessarily been the case. And I think that a lot of contractors are feeling that. We tend to use smaller firms who get a lot of their work through word of mouth. They don't have huge kind of backroom teams. They don't have in-house architects or designers. They don't have fancy offices. So the prelims and the overheads are kept to a reasonable level, which allows the client to spend on the finishes and everything else. And I think because a lot of our contractors don't have those overheads, they are doing okay. We're still very careful whenever we run a tender, even if we've worked with someone a number of times. We will go out to the last client that they've worked with because it's probably not us. We'll get that reference even if we know them really, really well. We'll have a look at company's house. Like we'll just check that what we experienced on the last job is what we're going to experience on the next one.
Yeah.
It sounds like
you're only as good as your last gig.
I was going to say you're only as good as your last game. Yeah, 100%. Like.
Well, it's true. I mean, and it's a super. I mean, we're seeing it on various sizes of development. And even with people providing, I don't know, a random example the other day, cladding on a building that could go bust during the whole the build process of a tower in the city or wherever. So it's super, super tough.
Yeah. We've just signed a client in Southwest London, and they were very keen to understand our tender process and how we vet contractors, because that's the experience they had on a previous project where the contractor went bust halfway through the job and hadn't delivered a lot of the work they should have delivered for the money that they'd taken. So it's a real concern for clients, and you just got to be super cautious, because even when you're not the contractor, which we're not, you're still the name at the top of the door. So ultimately, if something happens to the contractor during the project, yes, it's not our fault, and the contract is between the client and the contractor. We're the administrator, but it's still.
Well, the minute you're into contracts, there's already a problem, isn't it? The minute you start quoting a line in the contract, you know that it's not great. And to that point, then, because obviously these are not we work across asset classes, as an agency. I mean, these are. They might be second homes, but at the end of the day, they're homes. So these people are hugely sort of emotionally sort of attached to the project. How do you manage that kind of, there's the trust element, but sort of navigating that sort of, complex, emotional, financial and operational world you're dealing in, because it must be a bit of a balancing act.
Yeah. I went for lunch with a buying agent the other day, and she asked me if I missed buying, and I said I missed the simplicity. Yeah. Like I missed the search, the advice piece, the agreeing of the deal, conveyancing process. Of course, there's complications throughout, but then at the end of it, you've got a very happy client who has the home that they want. You give them the keys.
Well, there's an end point, isn't there?
You give them the keys, and you wish them well. It's not the case with what I do now. Like often, you're dealing with clients for upwards of 3 years. And even once the project is done, you've still got that relationship to carry on, because there's going to be snagging, there's going to be niggles. So your client list kind of
It's
does
the
this.
aftercare, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, absolutely. How do you deal with it? Again, it probably comes back to communication, and we are always improving our processes. Sadly, you learn through mistakes, or you learn through difficult experiences with clients. And whenever we have something that happens that we weren't expecting, we update our processes. We try and improve. We look to do things better. We will always do a round table after a project is done. My team hate it. We call them postmortems. They hate that.
I know, I was going to say.
But like, it's sort of like, what went well, what didn't go so well, and what can we learn? And I think that's key. You've always got to evolve and look to improve.
That aftercare, is that, I mean, how do you exactly? I mean, that you've got the sort of immediate sort of snagging, the management side of that home you've delivered. Is that something that you guys sort of are doing, or how does that work? Do these people then take that and then they deal with it?
We don't really get involved in that side of things. We've referred into management companies. Again, I sort of feel like it's horses for courses. That's a very difficult world to operate in and operate well in. And clients have very high expectations in that world, particularly if they're high net worth or ultra high net worth clients. Like, we would do that job badly. So
you turn into the operator, you know, it's kind of,
So I'd prefer to pass that to somebody else. Our aftercare is more, I mean, I don't know, some there's been a leak somewhere, or there's a squeaky board because or whatever it is. Like, it's normally not major, or perhaps like the Lutron paneling needs updating, whatever. It's normally you need to coordinate either the contractor or someone else within the professional team to come back and sort it, and it's just about acting quickly and maintaining the relationship with the client, being responsive.
In terms of sort of take us sort of maybe behind the sort of the into this world that you navigate in, behind the doors, or like, what is it that people are prioritizing? What are the kind of requests or recent trends in that sort of luxury living space? We do a lot of work in branded residential, which is obviously a sort of a certain set of high-end property. But what are the things that you're seeing, the kind of trends? What are people asking for now that they potentially weren't asking for before? Can you see trends in sort of?
I think you see design is a lot less showy and ostentatious these days. I think it's a lot more understated. People aren't looking for somebody to walk into the house and be kind of hit with this sort of bling look. Like, that doesn't exist anymore. I don't think people are kind of, the trends is much more towards natural tones, like things like polished concrete, clay plaster, micro cement, these kind of like tactile finishes. People are really kind of leaning into that at the moment. Wellness is a big thing. People want gyms or saunas or reading areas, whatever it is, outdoor plunge pools, that sort of stuff. Like, people are a lot more health conscious these days, I would say. I don't know. I mean, I think that they just want homes that are practical as well as beautiful. Like, I think joinery plays a big part in that. We try and think very hard about, is this home set up to work really well for this client and the way that they live?
As an ecosystem of different...
Exactly. You want to kind of, I think you want to walk into your home and feel comfortable and relaxed and like you're in your safe space. And I think that's probably the most important thing to clients.
How technically, or maybe it's a different question I was going to ask. Smart homes.
Yeah.
What's your thought? What do you think?
I personally love a toggle switch. But I think we have a mixture of clients. We have some who absolutely love it. They want everything to be operated by the iPad, or they want the blinds on the Lutron system. Like, they want security on it. They want everything on it. Like, particularly if they're international, they're not here a lot. The sort of peace of mind that everything is monitored and they can control things at the touch of a button is quite important. We'll often find that clients will go for a little bit of a hybrid approach. We did a project recently where the smart home functionality was in the principal suite and the formal living room and the kind of kitchen, diner, family space, and then elsewhere it was much more simplistic. Some of that's driven by budget, of course, but some of it's driven by, we just don't need all that everywhere.
I was going to say, like, how much is it, how much is it, because is it sometimes spec for spec's sake, and how much is
sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah.
I mean, look, obviously, like there are things as well that clients are pushing for these days, like mechanically vented heat return systems and all this sort of stuff, like wanting the air circulation to be great within a house and wanting the efficiency of the house to be fantastic. Challenging when you're working in central London and a lot of the buildings are well over 100 years old. Like, you do what you can do, but I think there's a lot of people who are maybe pushing for that element, utilising renewables, heat pumps, whether it's ground sourced or air source, solar, having very efficient homes, the MVHR. That's very important to some clients. Other clients, it's the mood lighting, the Lutron.
In terms of sort of, you were mentioning the different sub-markets within London, they've all got their sort of special, elements to them. You've recently opened sort of Project London in Dubai.
Mm-hmm.
Is it also called Project London in Dubai?
It's just called Project London, but yeah, we affectionately call it PLD. But yes.
And then so that intricate knowledge that you have of London, how have you managed to sort of replicate, duplicate? What's the model that and why Dubai in the sense of a market?
We've always dealt with a lot of clients from that region, whether it's Europeans who have interests in both regions or have moved over, or indeed we've done a lot of work for Middle Eastern clients over the years. I used to travel quite a lot with Knight Frank into those regions. Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, etc. So we've always kind of had good links there. It was driven by business opportunities, but also lifestyle. Like my business partner has 3 young kids. He was attracted to the school system over there. It's a bit more cost effective to send 3 young kids to private school over there, and couple that with the fact that there was an obvious, although obviously it's been slightly hit recently, but there was an obvious business opportunity as well. We went on a number of trips. We talked to a lot of agents, a lot of whom we've known very well from London, whether they're now over there for Sotheby's or Knight Frank or Savills or working for themselves, and talking about what we do over there and trying to bring that kind of London way of working to Dubai, which still has a little bit of a trust issue, let's put it that way, when it comes to actually construction being delivered and being delivered well.
I was going to say, because here you pride yourself on your sort of the open book, but also the quality of people you've been working with.
Yeah.
You're, well, on the buying side, no, but then to create that ecosystem, are you finding,
it's probably quite early to say. We started in October, Sam moved out in January, and it's obviously we've had the war, which has probably pumped the brakes on a little bit. So we are helping to deliver a number of homes at the moment for clients. We're still building the relationships that we've built here over the last 6 years. But I think that the homes there is good quality that's delivered out there. There's just a lot of poor quality as well, and a lot of bad experiences once a client gets on site. Being sold the dream with a lovely bunch of CGIs and a nice price to deliver the project, and then the reality of turning up to site and finding 1 or 2 people there not doing a huge amount kind of kicks in. So we've done a bit of trying to put the train back on the tracks. We've offered quite a lot of kind of low cost consultancy out there for clients, so that we're it's an easy win to kind of bring a bit of trust back into that situation. I think the things that are delivered well, the workforce is often quite similar. It's just managed well. It's that oversight that's missing a lot of the time. Knowing how things should be delivered, and again, communicating well with clients.
How have you found, because obviously we mentioned the sort of the real estate stock, or the 100-year-old homes that you're working with here, clearly different.
Yeah.
How has that been in terms of sort of working, not that many, or not that, I'm suspecting not that many renovations and probably from scratch builds? Or how is that? What's the kind of stock that you're working with?
The market that we're mostly targeting is the villa communities. So it's not the new build stuff on the Palm or in downtown. It's those sort of Arabian Ranches, the Greens, these sorts of locations where the villa has been there for a little while often. The base build is pretty poor. You can extend them relatively cheaply, and you can really elevate the level of design, upgrading facade, etc. So that's, I think, the market that we're targeting. And it's also the client who's in that market is normally the same sort of demographic as the client we're dealing with in London.
Mm-hmm.
It's the European expat mostly, and they understand the medicine that we're serving. Like they understand what we're trying to do, that we're trying to elevate design, that we're trying to bring a certain expectation of how delivery should happen
Yeah.
in the region. And
Well, even if it's not been 100 years and it's been, let's say, delivered in the last 15, there are things to upgrade even on the base build.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And then do you think the people are looking for the same things again? It's the same market. They want a duplication of their bases?
Yes and no. I think you've still got to design for the property that you're in, and a lot of what we do in London is in heritage buildings, whether they're listed or not. They're often in conservation areas. We're working in Victorian and Georgian properties. They don't exist in Dubai, so a lot of what we do here, we will bring back in original features. We will kind of juxtapose modern luxury living and convenience with that kind of beautiful old architectural detailing that sometimes is lost from these buildings or just needs to be brought back slightly.
Brought back to life, yeah.
That wouldn't work
No.
in the style of property there is in Dubai. But I think you can kind of play with facade details. You can
bring character.
You can bring character.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's that. You can improve flow and layout. You can zone spaces better. Like it's that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Where do you see it going currently with regards to the requirements of buyers? As you said, I think we're experiencing the same thing with the market not necessarily have picked up where it left off in December. Where do you see the market going in terms of sort of luxury in London and Dubai? I mean, notwithstanding obviously the current situation,
I think people are a lot more cost conscious at the moment. They want to know where their money's going. They want to know that the decisions they're making are adding value, or at least
smart.
At least it's got the decisions are washing their face in terms of like the money being spent goes back into the property in the right way. I think what's maybe changed a little bit is maybe that was definitely the case in your kind of market that was property values were maybe sort of in that 2 to 5 million range. That was definitely always the case. I think you're seeing that now in property values up to kind of 20, 30 million. It is no longer, I just want to design, deliver the home for me, I'll kind of write you a check. Not that we've ever necessarily been in that world because we're 6 years old, we're still relatively new to the party. We continue to go up the food chain each year as our experience improves and our portfolio improves. But we're definitely seeing, we work at lots of different ends of the spectrum, from your £100,000 contract to your £5-6 million contract. And I think what rings true in all of that is the client really cares about and wants to know where the money's going. I think that probably is a bit of a change. In terms of design, I think probably what I said earlier, like it feels less like we're going with trends and more like we're just going with timeless design. You want something that someone can walk into tomorrow or in 10 years and it still looks classic and it still looks elegant. I think there's a lot of that. People are thinking about sustainability, of course. Like we've got a lot of, we try and design joinery in a way that if it's a kid's playroom or bedroom today, you can utilize a fun wallpaper inlay. Maybe you can that can be upgraded. You can still retain the joinery because the material choices have been good and they're solid.
Well done, yeah.
And you can change the look and the feel for older kids or for young adults without having to completely redo rooms. So I think people are wanting to spend money that lasts as well.
Yeah, and that they can grow into their houses, or evolve with them as the generational sort of shifts happen.
Yeah.
If there was one project or a case study that you would say sort of kind of really encapsulates from start to finish what you feel Project London is all about. I mean, obviously, you're working on these projects, but if there was one that you'd like to share, what would it be?
We have one project that we're working on. I'm not going to give you anything in terms of where it is or what it is, but we actually, I think it's a good example of how we work because we actually took it off a wider professional team. I'd actually known the client for a very long time from kind of buying days. I'd known them. And they called me for a bit of advice when they were sort of they'd bought the house and they were about to kind of instruct a wider professional team. And I just kind of did a bit of a back pocket calculation of what they were spending on professional fees, and it was eye watering. I was just like, this is mad. Like, you're spending close to £800,000 on professional fees, and the quotes that are being kicked out on cost plans for doing the home, you're coming in at sort of 5 million or so. And I was like, look, there's no way, given purchase price and what you're looking to spend on this, that this house is worth anything near that when you come out the other end. What ended up happening was we then sort of looked at, there were fees on, there was a project manager, there was a QS, there was an interior designer, and there was an architect. So the interior designer remained, and we took the role of architect, QS, and PM and brought that all in-house and saved them a huge amount of money on professional fees, and just helped look at every decision that was being made and think about what was right for the house and what was right for the budget. And I will tell you in probably about a year and a half whether, when it comes out in the wash, the decision was right by the client. I can tell you for a fact that we've saved them a huge amount of money on professional fees. I think we're going to end up saving them a lot of money on the build as well. But we are, due to some cyber attack issues on certain councils, the works have been a little bit delayed. But I think that's quite a good example of the way that we work and how we try and focus clients' money in the right areas.
In the right areas, yeah.
If we can save them money on professional fees, we will try and do so that they can spend the money on the build, on the finishes, on the furniture at the end, and the stuff that really matters to them, without compromising on the delivery, of course.
On the delivery.
Yeah.
Do clients know most of the time? I mean, this is something that we're always frustrated with, is like, do you have a, like on a project or a campaign, like, do you have a number? Do you have a budget? A lot of people, because we feel that we're often playing this ridiculous game of guess the number in my head, which invariably is a very long game.
Yeah.
I mean, are most clients, going back to that cost element as well, are most clients, do they know what they want to, or they have a vague idea?
I think they do, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a constant battle. And I actually went to a round table the other day with various people in creative world. It was sort of architects, interior designers, joinery companies, etc. And that was one of the points that I raised, is that I struggle with clients not wanting to make a decision on who to work with at that early stage unless they've given a cost for what the job is going to cost. And you're trying to cost a job with no architectural drawings, with no scope, with no indication of what the client wants to spend. So you're sort of, you're basing it, of course, on experience and what you have done projects for within the local vicinity. But I've got clients who on the same street want to spend £400,000 more than the other in exactly the same house. So you are slightly shooting in the dark. I think there is a reticence from clients, and I get it, to give a budget.
Yeah.
Because you just assume, even though we're not the builder, that as soon as a budget is given, that anchors somebody to that point, and they're never going to come in below that. So I get the reticence, but we really do try and say to clients, like, the earlier you can give us an idea
range
of this, I say to the team, if you say to a client, do they want aircon? Do they want underfloor heating throughout? Do they want MVHR? Do they want bespoke furniture everywhere? Of course, the answer is going to be yes. If you frame it as, do you want this? It's going to add £50,000 to the overall project cost. Maybe the answer is different. So it's sort of about
the must
framing,
and the nice to have. Yeah.
And actually, sometimes with a client who's really reticent to give it and doesn't want to go out to a QS to get a cost plan, which is something we always advise, then we will say, okay, fine. Well, look, we need to know whether you're in the 700 to a million range or the million to 1.5. And if you throw numbers out, eventually you'll get that kind of like, well, no, I'm here.
Is there sort of tail off, and obviously, this vast experience of delivering these homes for these, wealthy, but also, very discerning clients. Is there one thing that sort of you feel like a trick of the trade, I don't know, that instantly elevates a home? Or thing that you kind of...
I think lighting and joinery are often the things that are probably forgotten about, and we really try and push. You walk into the same home that's been lit well and one that hasn't, and it's just it's chalk and cheese, isn't it? And the same with really good bespoke joinery. You just elevate spaces if you have it done well. If you've got great fitted furniture throughout the house that is also well lit, well accessorized, like it just makes such a huge
A
difference.
huge difference, yeah.
It's often, sadly, when you go through value engineering, it's the thing that goes. But we'll often encourage clients, if joinery has to be reduced, rather than to sort of reduce spec everywhere, we'd rather say, well, look, let's concentrate the money on principal suite, key living areas.
Where you're going to spend the most time. Yeah.
And then maybe rather than put in something off the shelf or done by the chippy on site, just don't put anything in. Like, buy freestanding, and then in 2 years, take this design that's already been done, come back and do it.
And come back and do it, yeah.
And that'll give you kind of actually a little bit of a lease of life with your home that you've lived in for a couple of years. You'll be like, oh, that's amazing. Like, now that room is really what I want it to be.
Yeah.
So it's sort of actually just say, look, sometimes
keep some little projects.
Sometimes you have a wish list that you are going to hit, but it might take you 3 or 4 years instead of a year, and that's okay.
And you might change your idea of what was important.
Absolutely,
or not. Yeah. No, completely. If there was sort of to close off in again, sort of one word or a sentence of the future of luxury living, where would you sort of North Star, or where do you think it's going? We're talking about the design features, but what would you think it would be?
Understated elegance.
Oh?
I would say walking into homes that lean into their kind of traditional architecture, are very, very well lit. The choice of materials is timeless and is going to last. And then I think people often forget as well, to go back to your point about what elevates a home. Most of our clients will take us from an interior design perspective for the hard finishes in the house. So turn a house upside down. If it doesn't fall off the floor, hard finish. They won't. 60%, maybe 50% will take us for that loose furniture, the FF&E. So the rugs, the decorative lighting, the furniture, the decorative headboards for the master bedroom. And I get it. A lot of the time, it's unaffordable to go for that. Some clients can't afford to choose to do everything at once. But actually just thinking about everything from the off, if you can, is really, really important. Like, is there going to be a key piece of artwork that's going to sit within this wall paneling? How are we going to position it? How are we going to light it? How does this bespoke sofa work with this room? And is there a rug? And is there floor lighting that we're going to sit within this space? Like, trying to make as many decisions on paper and look at design holistically from the off, which, again, I understand not everyone has the luxury of doing that. But the best projects that we've delivered, clients have been willing to think about that from the very early stage.
Yeah. And again, it's going back to that notion of, it's a project that might not be that has different delivery timeframes, but at least going back to most asset classes, it's instilling that element of adaptability and flexibility and forward planning into them. Yeah. But Jonathan, this has been an absolutely fascinating conversation. I know it's a market which is hugely demanding, and I think those notions of transparency, of creating that ecosystem and that notion of value is absolutely core. So it's been great to have you on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to Bricks and More. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a colleague or friend who would appreciate it. If you're not already, connect with me on LinkedIn, whether to say hello or discuss a destination, real estate, or hospitality project of your own. Finally, please rate the podcast on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Again, share the episode, connect with me on LinkedIn, and rate the podcast. I'm Adrian Strittmatter, and I'll be back soon with the next episode.